Two countries, separated by thousands of kilometers, no shared border, no territorial dispute, no direct colonial rivalry, and yet today they are locked in one of the most persistent geopolitical conflicts in the modern world. The United States deploys aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf. Iran expands missile systems and nuclear technology. Sanctions squeeze the Iranian economy, and across the Middle East, rival militias backed by both sides fight shadow battles from Iraq to Syria. Several times the confrontation has come dangerously close to open war. But here's the paradox. For much of the 20th century, the United States and Iran were not enemies at all. They were allies. So how did two countries that once cooperated closely become strategic adversaries? The answer begins with oil, Cold War politics, and one intelligence operation that would reshape the future of the Middle East. To understand the US-Iran conflict, we need to go back to the beginning. Today, the relationship between the United States and Iran is defined by deep diplomatic hostility. Economic sanctions isolate Iran from much of the global financial system. Iran continues expanding its ballistic missile capabilities and uranium enrichment program. American military forces maintain a strong presence in the Persian Gulf. Meanwhile, Iran supports allied groups and militias across the region. From Lebanon to Yemen, from Syria to Iraq, this network of alliances allows Iran to project influence beyond its borders, but it also places Tehran in direct strategic competition with Washington and its regional partners. The tension is not limited to diplomacy. Cyber operations, covert intelligence activity, and proxy conflicts have become common tools of confrontation. And every few years, the rivalry escalates into a crisis that threatens wider regional instability. But the roots of this confrontation are far older than modern nuclear negotiations or military standoffs. They reach back to the early Cold War, and to a moment when Iran was not an adversary of the United States, but a crucial partner. In the early 20th century, Iran possessed one of the most valuable strategic resources in the world: oil. The discovery of massive petroleum reserves attracted global attention. But by the mid-1900s, most of Iran's oil industry was controlled by a British corporation called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. The profits were enormous, but the benefits for Iran were limited. British companies controlled production, foreign executives managed operations, and Iran received only a small share of the revenue. Inside the country, resentment slowly grew. Many Iranians believed their natural wealth had been taken by foreign powers. This frustration fueled a powerful political movement, nationalism, and in 1951 that movement brought a new leader to power. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh introduced a dramatic policy. He nationalized Iran's oil industry. The decision electrified the country. For many citizens, it was a historic step toward economic independence. But internationally, the reaction was immediate. Britain responded with economic pressure and diplomatic retaliation. Oil exports collapsed, foreign investment disappeared, and Iran's economy entered a period of instability. But Britain did not act alone, because the geopolitical environment of the 1950s was shaped by a larger conflict: the Cold War. The United States feared the expansion of Soviet influence across Eurasia. Iran sat directly along the Soviet Union's southern border. If political instability pushed Iran toward Moscow, the strategic consequences could be enormous. So American policymakers faced a difficult choice: support a nationalist leader challenging Western economic interests, or intervene to preserve a pro-Western government. In 1953, the United States made its decision. The Central Intelligence Agency launched a covert operation. Its objective was simple: remove Mossadegh from power. Working alongside British intelligence services, the operation organized protests, political pressure, and military support for opposition forces. The effort succeeded. Mossadegh was arrested, and Iran's monarch, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, regained full authority. At the time, the operation appeared to stabilize the situation. Iran remained aligned with Western interests. American and British companies regained access to oil resources, and the Shah emerged as a powerful regional partner for the United States. But this moment would have consequences that few policymakers fully anticipated. Because for many Iranians, the coup represented something very different. It looked like foreign powers had overthrown a democratically elected leader. The memory of that intervention would become a central grievance in Iranian politics, and decades later, it would help ignite a revolution. During the 1960s and 1970s, Iran under the Shah became one of the most important strategic allies of the United States in the Middle East. The Shah launched an ambitious modernization program, known as the White Revolution. The reforms included land redistribution, infrastructure expansion, and rapid industrial development. Oil revenues fueled economic growth, cities expanded, education systems improved, and Iran's military became one of the most powerful in the region. The United States strongly supported these reforms. Advanced weapon systems flowed into Iran. American military advisors trained Iranian forces. The alliance strengthened Washington's position near the Soviet Union. But modernization came with political costs. The Shah ruled as an authoritarian monarch. Political opposition was suppressed, and a powerful intelligence agency called SAVAK monitored dissent. Critics were arrested, opposition groups were silenced, and many citizens felt excluded from political life. Meanwhile, rapid social change created new tensions. Western cultural influence expanded in urban areas. Traditional religious communities reacted with alarm. Economic inequality widened between cities and rural regions. These pressures slowly destabilized the political system. Among the most vocal critics was a religious leader named Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini argued that the Shah had become dependent on foreign powers. He condemned Western influence in Iranian society, and he warned that the country was losing its political independence. At first, these ideas circulated quietly, but as economic and political tensions intensified, they began spreading across the country. By the late 1970s, Iran's political system had reached a breaking point. What happened next would permanently reshape the Middle East. In 1978, large protests erupted across Iran. Demonstrations spread from city to city. Millions of people filled the streets. Security forces attempted to restore order, but the unrest only expanded. The Shah's government lost control, and in early 1979, the monarchy collapsed. The Shah fled the country. Soon afterward, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile. Iran transformed into an Islamic republic. A revolutionary government replaced the monarchy. The new leadership rejected Western political influence, and relations with the United States deteriorated almost immediately. But the most dramatic moment was still ahead. Later that year, a group of revolutionary students stormed the American embassy in Tehran. They accused the United States of planning another intervention similar to the 1953 coup. 52 American diplomats and staff were taken hostage. The crisis lasted 444 days. Images of blindfolded hostages dominated international television. The event shocked the United States. Diplomatic relations collapsed. Economic sanctions were imposed, and the relationship between Washington and Tehran entered a new era of hostility. But this crisis would soon be overshadowed by another regional catastrophe, because the Middle East was about to experience one of the longest wars of the 20th century. In 1980, Iraq, under the leadership of Saddam Hussein, invaded Iran. The war began as a territorial dispute, but it quickly expanded into a devastating regional conflict. The Iran-Iraq War lasted 8 years. Cities were bombed, missiles struck civilian areas, and more than 1 million people were killed. During the war, the United States did not formally participate, but American strategic interests increasingly aligned with Iraq. Washington feared the spread of Iran's revolutionary ideology, so intelligence cooperation and diplomatic support quietly favored Baghdad. Iran faced international isolation. Its economy suffered, its cities were devastated, and its leadership drew an important conclusion. Iran needed stronger military deterrence, including missile programs and advanced defense capabilities. This belief would shape Iran's security strategy for decades, and it would bring the country into renewed confrontation with the United States. In the decades that followed, the US-Iran rivalry evolved into a complex geopolitical struggle. Iran expanded its influence across the Middle East. It supported allied groups such as Hezbollah in Lebanon. It built relationships with political factions in Iraq, and it backed the Syrian government during the Syrian civil war. From Iran's perspective, these alliances created strategic depth. They helped counterbalance regional rivals and protect national security. But from the American perspective, these activities represented a growing network of proxy conflicts. Tensions intensified. But another issue soon dominated international diplomacy: Iran's nuclear program. Iran insisted the program focused on civilian energy production and scientific research. But Western governments worried that uranium enrichment could eventually produce nuclear weapons capability. Negotiations began. Sanctions increased, and the issue became one of the most sensitive security challenges in global politics. After years of diplomatic negotiations, a breakthrough finally appeared in 2015. Iran and several world powers reached a historic agreement: the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The deal limited Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for economic sanctions relief. For a brief moment, the decades-long confrontation appeared to ease, but the stability proved temporary. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the nuclear agreement. Sanctions were reimposed. Iran responded by expanding its nuclear enrichment activities. Regional tensions intensified, military incidents increased, and in 2020, the rivalry reached another dangerous moment. A United States drone strike killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq. Soleimani had overseen many of Iran's regional military operations. His death shocked the region. Iran retaliated with missile strikes on American military bases in Iraq. For a brief moment, the two countries stood at the edge of open conflict, but direct war was avoided. For now. Today, the United States and Iran remain locked in a complex geopolitical standoff. Sanctions continue to pressure Iran's economy. Iran continues expanding missile technology and nuclear capabilities. Both countries compete for influence across the Middle East. Most confrontations occur indirectly, through proxy groups, through intelligence operations, through economic pressure. But the underlying mistrust remains, and every crisis carries the risk of escalation. And that is how the US-Iran conflict began, not with a single battle, but with a chain reaction of political decisions. A Cold War coup, a revolution, a hostage crisis, a devastating regional war, and decades of strategic rivalry. Each moment pushed the relationship further apart. Each event deepened the mistrust. And today, the consequences of those decisions still shape the geopolitics of the Middle East. If this video helped clarify one of the most complicated conflicts in modern international relations, consider subscribing for more deep dive explanations of global power struggles and geopolitical history.